Hi, and welcome to Table Talks on Today with Paul. Today, I'm very happy to introduce to you one of my favorite movies of all time. I do this again. Of course, last time it was The Big Lebowski. This time, it's a little something called Kicking and Screaming. And no, I'm not talking about the 2005 Will Ferrell movie. Just so happens the big difference here in the title is the difference between an ampersand and the word A-N-D. And so here we go. We got Kicking and Screaming, released in 1995. And of course, the main person on here, the big fame type person in here to kind of get some attraction going for a movie like this is Eric Stoltz, of all people. And there you go. And for any of you kids out there who don't know what this is, this just so happens to be what they call a VHS cassette, and that happens to go and be put into something called a VCR. So there you go, old school technology there. And just so it happens to be from a place you go to called a video rental store. There you go, Family Video, almost dead and on its way out. They keep closing stores left and right. Of course, I got a more modern DVD version. This is what they call, well, it's one of their collections. Criterion Collection of Kicking and Screaming, special edition. I forget when this was released. I think it was the early O's. And you got your information on there. It's a film by Noah Baumbach, I believe it says there. You saw on the front. And pretty neat what they got here. They got all this fun stuff like that. And then also, what I thought was really neat, because this is kind of like a cult type of film. So anybody who really, anybody out there who has a cult classic that they love so much, you're going to know just about every line in the movie. So here you go. You got a crossword puzzle there made just for the film itself. Pretty cool. Make some photocopies if you have an edition like this, and go ahead and play around with it a little bit. I know I sure did. Yeah, I know quite a few lines in this film. It's just one of those that really spoke out to me. And there again, just like The Big Lebowski, although not the crazy circumstances of The Big Lebowski, we're talking about a movie of change. The theme is about change in life. It's about life circumstances and moving forward. It's about what's friendship, it starts out with a graduation party. And so you got four friends, Skippy, Otis, Max, and Grover, and they're all graduating at the same time. And of course, they spent the 4 years at university together. And the thing is they just don't know where they're going. They don't know what's happening next. Grover's girlfriend is going off to Prague. And he's a little upset because they were supposed to live in Brooklyn, A-list Brooklyn, in fact. So Jane's going off to Prague. And of course, Skippy, his girlfriend's still in college, Miami. That's her name, Miami. And so they're all just kind of freaked out. And this one lady runs into Eric Stoltz's character. And here he is. He's been in college for years and years and years. And she says, "Oh my gosh, it's just wonderful to meet an adult in one of these parties. It's just a bunch of freaked out kids, isn't it?" And that's pretty much explaining exactly our group of four friends, exactly on point. She's right. Then she comes to find out that old Chet's still in college himself. She's like, "You're not still a student, are you?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, this third tome has become more difficult with each time." And he's a perpetual student, and I love it. So anyways, the fellas are just kind of figuring themselves out. We see the ending of a relationship at the beginning of the movie between Jane and Grover. And then everything that happens in between is pretty mundane for the most part, except it's very dry humor throughout that kind of keeps the story moving. And you just see these guys progress past college, still living on campus. At least around campus anyways, on and around campus. Of course, Otis lives with his mom, and he's supposed to go off to graduate school. Well, here's the Max and Grover dropping him off at the airport, and he's worried about whether he should be having his egg salad sandwich, or I forget if it was tuna, and it's not refrigerated. He's so nervous, and when you know what finally Max calls, he says, "Okay, we're just gonna have to do this like mothers at nursery school," and then they just pick up and leave because Otis is so antsy. And he can't hardly stand to move forward. He just can't. He's afraid of the unknown. He's afraid of what's out there. And so the fellows come back from a grocery shopping trip, Max and Grover, and you see them come back to their place. And Max says, "Who the hell Black Eyed Peas?" Well, of course you know who bought them. Grover's the only one with you. And I love the classic scene where Max breaks a glass on the kitchen floor. And is so lazy, but wouldn't you know it, he just happens to he won't clean it up. He actually takes the effort and puts on Sharpie on paper and writes broken glass and places it gently over the pile of broken glass. So you just see all these little things about these guys. It's kind of messed up. But the fellows, they end up in the house after that, and there's a big knock on the door. And so Max is like, get down on the ground. And they get down on the ground, and Grover's like, why are we on the ground? And he says, it's the Cookie Man. He's so hard to say no to. Go away, Cookie Man, go away. And then all of a sudden the door opens, and there's Otis. And then he drops to the ground and says, is it the Cookie Man? These guys, they all know each other so well, and it gets on Miami's last nerve. She can't hardly stand how they all are together, and in fact, it kind of gets in the middle of her and Skippy's relationship. And in fact, one night, Max and Miami, they end up hooking up, and so you really see where's friendship at, where's loyalty, where's moving forward at. And these two confused people in the middle of their time and space at that point in their lives, that they just do what they ended up doing. And so finally, eventually, Miami tells Skippy, and everybody else finds out because Max tells Otis, and and it really causes some trouble down the road, where Skippy ends up actually telling Max at the bar, which is where they meet up quite frequently. They meet up at a local tavern, a locals place, as it were, a townie joint. And at one point in time, towards the end of the movie, Skippy actually says to Max, and he's looking at his watch, he says, as of right now, wait till the second hand passes the whatever. He says, as of right now, we are no longer friends. And so, it shows life's journey. It shows the changes in our life, what we're afraid to go down the road with. Of course, Max ends up meeting a girl who was Grover's 2T. It turns out to be a high school girl. And, he's at the time with Skippy kind of going, hey, that happened. It was one night, but there's always Kate. And there's Kate. He's with Kate now. But I love Max's first date with Kate. And it's too funny to find out she's only 17, but she is a firecracker. She's about ready to go back with a tire iron and get some yokel with a tire iron who's trying to steal her parking spot on the street when they're going to the pizza joint. And I just thought it was too funny later on in the date when they're closing things up. Things are coming to an end, wrapping up the date, and he finds out her birthday's soon, and he's just like, oh gosh, a birthday at this point is like a venereal disease. It's like if I spend too much money, it looks like I'm overcompensating, or I'm coming on too strong. And if I spend too little, I look cheap. And like I said, that's when he says, a birthday at this point. It's like a venereal disease. I mean, just classic lines like that you wouldn't expect out of somebody, but expressing their worry and concerns at moments when they're not sure of how to proceed or how to act exactly. So Kate and Max are a couple. Skippy and Miami aren't doing so well. And of course, Jane's over in Prague and Grover's still here in the States. And Otis he's having relationship problems too. He starts a book club with Chet and keeps making him upset that he never ends up reading the books. He never reads the books. I mean, he pretends to. Otis is just that real kind of flaky person who wants to do the right thing, but he falls through every time. And even had to go for 2 interviews at Video Planet, and it was even pointed out to him, it was like, who has to interview twice at a video store? But second time that Chet's over for the book club, as upset as he is, I love this classic line. And he goes, "No, I'm calm, I'm cool. Tidy is a lifestyle choice. I like to be of service." So he picks up the broom and starts sweeping up. But we go towards the end of the film, and you see these flashbacks throughout of Jane and Grover and how they're starting to connect. And one of the last few scenes is when they're actually seeing Otis off for the last time. It's actually happening this time. And so Grover's there at the airport, and he kind of gets that romantic and inspiration in him. And so he goes up to the lady at the desk, and he says, "Hey, are there any flights out to Prague?" And she says, "Yes, there are, leaving at whatever time it was." And he's like, "I'd like to get on that flight." And she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, we're all booked up." And so he starts to plead with the lady. He says, "Well, does it matter if you send just one more American?" And he starts going through this whole thing where this diatribe, if you will, of things he recollects from conversations from before between him and Jane. You know, whatever's good over there. That it's got to be better than American beer, or is it coffee? I don't know. And then there's those museums and all that. And some guy just kissing Jane, some prying idiot just dancing the night away with her and all that. And you can just see how much he really misses her at that point. And so she finally gets on the computer and she says, "You know, Mr. Carey, I think we can. I think I got one more seat just for you." And he's just got this smile on his face. But wouldn't you know it, he forgot his passport. And then you're left wondering, does Grover ever go back to the airport to go fly out to Prague and see Jane? We'll never know. But the end of the movie starts at the beginning of the relationship, when it really starts. And it's just one of the most romantic things you've seen. Well, maybe one of the more touching romantic scenes I've seen. You know, I can't speak for anyone else. But they're walking down the street. It was just at the bar, and they've hung out at the bar a couple times in the afternoon, the Townie bar. And they're walking down the street, and she's supposed to go to her therapist. And he's following behind, and he gets real serious. He says, "You know, I just don't want any of this to be forgotten after today. When I go back to my friends and you go back to your therapist, I hope we keep this moment." And she says, "Well, it's not as serious as all that. It's a long life." And she says, "You know, what if we did have a love affair?" And he says, "Yeah, that's the way to think about it." He says, "You know," he says, "I wish we were an old couple." And she's kind of looking at him funny. He says, says, "Why is that?" And he says, "Because if we were an old couple, I just want to reach over and kiss you right now. And if we were, you'd be pleased, I guess, and probably happy." And she just kind of gives out this little giggle, and he looks back and smiles, and she's just kind of like, "What?" And then slowly but surely the movie kind of fades out and you hear the song "Bad Reputation." I forget by who, but just because it ends and wraps up the movie, it's a song of mine that I happen to like. So there you go. You know, the beginning is the ending, and the ending is the beginning, and you just see this transition in these people's lives and how they roll with it, and how relationships evolve and form. And it's just a touching movie to me. It always reminds me of how to flow. So, anyways, I want to thank you for sharing, liking, and subscribing as always. And of course, I hope to catch you next time. Peace.